the Goodwood Festival of Speed 2023, and it's actually the first time I've been here in 11 years,
yeah,
12 years.
2011 was your last.
Yeah, so we were all here at the Drivers Club, and we were sitting around talking. Little background, I guess, on each of us. I'll start. I'm Brian Scotto. I co-founded Hoonigan with Ken Block in 2011. Helped do a bunch of stuff, direct Gymkhana films, all of that. And I don't know, you might as well go second because you fit into that story. Then the rest of these guys all drive race cars. They're a lot cooler than
Yeah,
us.
they're more recognizable. So I'm Ron Zaras, and I did media for Ken from 2010 to 2018, part of the Hoonigan brand since then too.
Yeah,
Mike.
myself, Mad Mike, from New Zealand, chasing dreams. Ken was a massive inspiration to me, so it's just cool to, Goodwood Festival of Speed, many events, but cool to be here, celebrate Goodwood again.
I'm Lance Smith from Vermont Sports Car, and we helped Ken get behind the wheel of a competitive car and start his career.
I'm Travis Pastrana. I introduced Ken to Lance, and we started rallying about the same time. He was my boss before that at DC, and then he was my teammate, competitor, rival, every other word in between there. And then we started doing Gymkhana with these guys, so he let me jump on that bandwagon as well.
Nice. Yeah, my name's Baggsy. I've been racing drift cars going nearly 15 years, and I got to spend a lot of time with these guys and Ken at Gymkhana grid events and all kinds of other activations with Monster Energy over the last sort of 10 years. And yeah, it's amazing to be back here at Goodwood Festival of Speed, somewhere I know Ken loved, and yeah, just to get to hang out with everybody again right now and share some of those moments, I think it's going to be amazing.
I love that kind of interruption. That's like the proper audio.
It really is.
It really is. It's
just a high
it's
revving
fitting.
and
yeah.
That's pretty much like Ken, just shut up, Baggsy.
Oh yeah. It's like Baggsy.
Well, that was his number one thing. When do I get to drive?
Oh yeah.
All of everything else was just about when can I drive.
Yeah. When we came here the first year in 2010, Ken was like, "Oh, there's a rally course and there's also a hill climb. Can I do both?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, but you'd have to have 2 cars." Okay, we'll bring 2 cars. So we serviced 2 cars.
Yep.
We'd run the car up, and then we would switch the car over. Someone else would have to run that car down, which was the Gymkhana car, and then we had the rally car that we'd run the forest stages.
The
in.
WRC Focus.
And we had,
that year,
WRC
2010,
Focus that
and then
year.
The Gymkhana 3 Fiesta.
Yeah, and then afterwards he'd be like, "Okay, can I go home now? Like, can I drive more?" Like that was all he
Right.
ever wanted to do. So I'm gonna put you on the hot seat first, because like you actually know Ken the longest out of all of us. So, because you literally take credit for, you should take credit for why Ken got into rally.
So, well, that story is pretty funny. So I had Puma and Alpine Stars, and I got into rally from Alpine Stars, and every time I had something broken, it was Alpine Stars. But Alpine Stars they didn't pay anything, and Puma was my highest paying sponsor. So Puma goes, right before, a week before X Games, they said, "You got to choose, either us or them." And I was like, "Them." So I called up Ken, and I was like, "Hey buddy," who I knew through just the industry.
Yeah.
Actually, Ken's really good on dirt bikes. He's a good athlete.
Yeah.
Like, he's not, it's amazing to me that he did so well relating to the fans and being this media icon, because he just loved to ride. He loved to ride snowboards, he loved to ride motorcycles, he loved, whatever it was, like mountain bikes. One time we showed up and he's all beat up. I was like, "What happened?" He's like, "Oh, he's super competitive." He's like, "Well, you ever heard of Strava?" He's like, "Yeah, there was an intersection at the bottom of my road. I was going to beat the all-time Strava record. I got smashed by a car." I'm like,
He's competing with people he doesn't even
doesn't
know.
even know.
Right.
No.
That was ultimate for him.
Yeah.
So he's like, "So, you think you're good at rally?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, you started rallying. I love rally." He's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty good." I'm like, "All right, so what's the deal? Are we going to sponsor me for like X Games or what?" And he goes, "Hey, so this Vermont sports car, I've been looking into it. Like, I don't need anything from you. I just need a contact." And he got a hold of Lance, and Lance brought in some of the top drivers. We had David Higgins and everyone to come out, and everyone's like, "Oh, like this guy wants to, he just sold DC shoes. Like, he's got some money." No, within a year, he's like, he won his first national championship rally before I did, and I put it off. It was freaking 100 Acre Wood. He always won 100 Acre Wood, man. I was 2 seconds behind, smashed a tree. I was like, "Man, should not have brought him into rally."
Good. Yeah. And then, so like you kind of took that from there, and it's funny because the story I'd love to hear your perspective on, because I've sort of heard yours and I've obviously heard Ken's, but like Derek was brought over to bring Travis to WRC, but instead he brought Ken to WRC. So like somehow you lost your seat there.
When Ken wanted to go to WRC, we were thinking about going to WRC, and I asked Derek, could you just go with Ken to speak with Malcolm to help his entry to WRC and make sure he was okay? And Derek left with Ken to WRC. That was never the plan.
Stayed at M Sport for a couple days. Yeah.
Derek thought I fired him. I didn't fire you. I just asked you to give him guidance. But anyway, it was very good.
The funny part about that is, so Ken was really good about building heroes around him. We all thought he was doing it for us, but really he just knew that eventually he was going to beat us. So he tried to build up all these heroes so that when he
could just topple you later.
Pow!
No, but to beat it, nobody.
Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true.
But the interesting part about how this all kind of came together was he was looking at it, and Lance was, at the time, it was Vermont Sports Car, and Subaru was kind of, that was where you wanted to be, and that's where he wanted to be. And then he realized, he's like, well, what if I take these guys? He's like, there has to be a rivalry. He was always looking at a business side of how can I build my rivals? How can I, high tide floats all ships. How can I make this sport the greatest thing ever? I mean, he got rally into X Games. Yeah. And then we got Colin McRae comes over, and all of a sudden, like, rally is a sport in the I mean, you guys have been doing it forever, but like, it's like,
well, people noticed.
Yeah.
People noticed.
No one in America knew what rally was. So, I mean, my funny story with Lance is that I went to University of Vermont, and these guys were still running Mitsubishis, and I would go and just like drool over all the cars, and they'd be like, you can get out now, right? And then like years later, I'm like, oh, we kind of like work together now, but like at that time, it was like there was so few people who cared about rally in America, and if it wasn't, I think, really for Ken and what he did with X Games and the pressure and the leverage he used with DC and everything else to like get Americans to pay attention to it, who knows if we would still have ARA or if anyone would have had driver, actually do any cool driving in the US.
Racing would have always been around, but not to keep jumping in and taking this conversation over, but the coolest thing about Ken was that I thought, he's like, I love drifting, I love cars, he's just so passionate, he's super competitive, but when he didn't need sponsorship to go have fun. So he went, had the most fun of anyone in the world, built the fastest like rally cars ever, did some and all of a sudden he creates this car culture that he's able, with his just the mindset and everything else that he had learned from business, to build, and he leveraged so much stuff just to go have fun in a car.
It's interesting because Ron and I have had the conversation, actually everyone have had the conversation, right? Like, the famous story is Ken starts rally, he's 36, 37 years old, right? And everyone's like, well, if he would have started at 18, could he have won a championship, right? And I think we're looking at his daughter Leah now potentially leading in that. Like, she started early enough that she may actually be able to like really go somewhere with it. But I also question, like, if Ken didn't come in as an outsider, would he have shifted like the paradigm of what motorsports was? Because he came in and would say, I don't get why they do this, that's boring. And it's like, but when you grow up in it, you don't really think about it that way. Like, it was him always pointing that thing, going, why do it that way when we can do it this way? That's so much more exciting. Like, it would be way better to do it this way, And I don't know if he would have been able to do that if he hadn't already done DC and done so much in skateboarding and all of that, and come in. So like, I think he created this whole different thing that, like, we spent a lot of time in the past, 8 months thinking about this change, this effect and impact that Ken left, and so much of it is like, it wasn't just his driving and the Gymkhana videos, but it made like so many drivers think differently, right? And I think like definitely you have like that influence of like being like more flashy about what you do, because at the end of the day, like that flash like sells, and that's like what partners want, and it's what gets people excited,
Like for him, what he did to rally, of course, like rally is manufactures for big budget teams. And then what he did, he really transferred, like, coming from freestyle motocross or skateboarding or BMX, and showed, like, you can do that same and have that same engagement, create a fan base, like, bring the people with you, but with a car. Like, with a rally car. And then for me, I was just kind of getting into, like, I was motocross at the time. Travis, huge inspiration. So, as a Kiwi, chasing this dream to get to California, live out that California dream. And I remember meeting Ken for the first time, Red Bull World Drift Champs in California. Like, I was living out my California dream, and he gave me my first free, like, I got a pair of DC race boots.
Nice.
And they were the biggest, puffiest things, but they were so sick. But I think my suit, like you were saying before, was like 10 times too big, but it was cool, like how...
I remember that day because I was there and we walked away, and I remember Ken said, kid's suit's kind of big, but like, he has style and no one else here does. And like, that was a lot to say about drifting, because like drifting was seen with the kids who were supposed to be the most stylish in the group, but like everyone still wanted to be a race
Oh, that's
car
great.
driver.
So you didn't see me as a stylish dude.
What? No, you said we were stylish.
Oh,
like
right.
out of
No,
the
he said
group.
you were the most
You were the
stylish.
most
okay.
stylish.
Don't
Yeah. I mean, by comparison,
Dude,
you
well,
know, by
that's
comparison.
that you just took, by the way.
No, I mean, like, you
Well,
weren't.
you know, I mean, you have a driver's briefing at drifting, right? And then there's always like the 3 judges, and then there's 30,000 people in the grandstand. And it's usually like, do you drive for those 3 judges or do you drive for the crowd? You know, that's the inspiration Ken gave is like, man, you want to entertain, like entertainment, man. And,
For the people.
Winning's not the main thing.
yeah.
One of the things
That's not
that
what you told me at all.
well, that's not what I will tell you tomorrow either. The 2 things that I remember, which were amazing to me, is the when Travis called signing the contract with Ken and DC. That's when I met him on the phone. 3 weeks later, I never met him in person. 3 weeks later, we were delivering a car to his house in Utah in the snow.
Yes.
Bought a brand
Mountain Lab.
Yeah, Mountain Lab.
Yeah.
Bought a brand new STI and put some wheels and tires on it, some suspension, and I drove it through the night. And we get there, I picked Chris Yandel up at the airport, and we go to Ken's house, and now it's 1 in the morning or something like that, and lets us in, and Chris Yandel and Ken are playing video games all night.
Yep.
Here I'm dragging my ass. I'm like, look, I got to go to bed, you guys. What did I get myself into? And I literally go away. And then they played for hours and hours. And then the other thing that he did was really unique. When we did the Gumball 3000 and he did the shoes and the cars and they matched.
Yeah.
Who has that?
And
talent and
wrapping
idea?
cars like with vinyl wrap in camo sounds totally standard today.
But it wasn't.
But back then
It
it was
wasn't.
like, who? Wait,
It
what?
wasn't.
Like, that's
But when
insane.
he said, "Oh, I'm going to make shoes just like those cars," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I literally didn't understand. And when he presented it with the cars, it was
Yep.
mind blowing.
Well,
That
whenever
was awesome.
whenever we worked on the liveries, it was always broken down into elements, and the elements were like, okay, the sole of the shoe is this, and then the upper is this, and then the tongue is this, and then you take those and put them on the car. You start with the shoe, you start with the product, and then make the car
The
work
attention
around
to
that and back
detail
and forth.
was
Yeah.
at an unknown level. That was what was amazing to me. Just like,
I remember the year that we raced 1 lap of America and we blew the motor at the first event. Do you remember that?
No.
You guys were servicing the car. You're like,
I'm
yeah, I
gonna
don't
deny
remember that at
everything.
all.
Nope.
I think Click Fast was probably
Oh, is that
dealing
right?
with us, and we go. It's like first lap
we
out,
switched to
first lap
something.
out, blow the motor, and Ken was like, "Oh, why do you think that happened?" I was like, "I don't know, because you're like full tilt on the rev limiter for like 3 corners." He's like, "Okay, well, I guess we could like, can they change the motor?" Because like at this point, Ken doesn't really know that much about cars. He just knows how to drive them, which was so odd to me growing up as a kid who like learned to work on cars so I could drive them. He was like, "I don't know, I just break them. Like I don't know, they'll just like fix it." And like the guys worked through the night, got the car running. Get up in the morning, and Ken's like, "All right, so like where do we have to go?" And I'm like, "Georgia." And we were in Chicago. I'm like, "That's where the next event is. We have to drive to Georgia and we have to be there by morning." He's like, "All right, cool. I'll sleep first. You drive." And that was like such the Ken thing.
Standard.
Like, yeah.
Standard.
I don't like that kind of driving. I'll wake me up for the fast
Yeah,
driving. You
yeah.
do the other part. Yeah. Oh man.
crazy.
So when did you come into the fold?
I think the first time I met Ken was a video game launch.
Oh, was it the Battersea?
Battersea Power
Yeah,
Station?
I remember
Is it
that.
Dirt,
It was Dirt 2. Dirt 2 or
Dirt
3?
2 launch. Yeah.
I forget. It
Yeah,
was one of the Dirt games.
Dirt
Yeah.
games.
one of the
And
Dirt
it was just one of those moments for me where I was like, oh wow, that is that guy that we've just learned to like love through all the Gymkhana videos
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
And it was just like a crazy moment for me to be able to meet somebody that again at that point had been very inspirational to everything that I'd wanted to achieve, and and it was just a really surreal moment. Didn't spend that much time with Ken that day, but fast forward a couple of years, we did a Monster Energy activation in London, and me and Ken spent quite a long time going backwards and forwards over a like table tennis game.
Oh, the
Oh.
ping pong.
Ping
is,
pong.
that's a fireside
And,
chat. in
Are
itself.
you any good at that?
Frustratingly for Ken, I felt like we were about about even.
What was he playing? Was he playing
don't know.
left-handed, or was he holding a child in his right arm?
He was very, very, very good. But I'd played a lot of tennis and a little bit of table tennis as a kid as well. So obviously being English, that's something we do. So
Learn something new every day.
And we just we went at it for a while. But yeah, he did win. But yeah, we catch up on that every now and again and played different various places around the world wherever we were. And of course, Gymkhana grids that we would go to in various different countries, from South Africa to Poland to the UK, Greece, Spain. Like we were at all of them, and just getting to see him drive and turn up every year with a different incredible machine, and just seeing what he was able to achieve and dream up and create was just so inspiring. And he was, I think, like what Mike said, he was just everything we strive to be. You know, it was just like, how does this guy keep coming back with these amazing, incredible ideas and builds, and it made us level up. You know, like it never allowed the industry to kind of just plateau. We always wanted to keep going. We were always 100% behind Ken, but it was like we'd want to just take a little bit of it, because what he was doing was just incredible. You know, if we could be 10% of what Ken had achieved, we were happy. You know, but yeah, Ken for me was a rock star, and he just made it work, and it was incredible.
And any one of you who've like done any kind of sport with Ken, if Ken was not good at it, he would just not do it.
Either not do it, or like downhill mountain biking, for example. When we got back into that in Utah, we rode a lot together, and so that was the focus. If he was at home and he had a free moment, it was an hour, half an hour, whatever it may have been, he would go and he would find the guy that races down favelas in Brazil and ride behind him and be like, I'm learning the line, I'm learning how to be fast, and I would have to be behind him with a GoPro on my head, just like, oh my God. But he was so
you got
focused.
really good really fast too.
I had to. Broke a couple things in the meantime, but no, I mean, that was his thing. Like, whatever he got into, if he was into it, it was full on that thing.
Yeah.
Whether it was
Halo.
wakeboarding, whatever.
All I can remember from my first trip to the mountain, I break my back because I can't snowboard. So I tried anyway. Long story.
Tried a backflip, didn't work out
I'm
well.
sitting there with a broken back, and I'm like, I played Halo all day by myself, and I'm like, I'm getting pretty good at this. Every time Ken killed me, I'd like respawn or reappear, whatever you call it, and I just instantly die. I would reappear and die. I would reappear and die. I was like, I played 007 GoldenEye. Like, why is this?
Yeah.
So then we went over to table tennis. He's like, oh, it's okay. I'll play left-handed and I'll sit on a chair because I know you can't stand. So I'm like, I have to play something I can beat him. I have never played table tennis or Halo since that mountain lab trip. Ruined my life on it.
And it's like
Look
the
at the broken
bellowing,
back. Like,
the
that's
bellowing
fine.
laugh when he's winning against you, like the
he
deep,
loves that.
loud
He
laugh every
enjoys it.
time. Yo, he lived for it.
Kept looking at my screen. He was cheating.
Yeah. Well, on the competitive thing, it's funny because even on the social media side, I remember that this would happen to us all the time. He's in the WRC, like the first couple years, the World Rally Championship, like Olympic level driving and rally. And he's on a transit, and he's texting us ideas on what we should be doing next week, or the video that's coming up next. He's on transit. He should be thinking about like these gnarly stages. Nope, always texting us ideas. There was this thing called the Hook It Athlete Index, which would take your Facebook, your Instagram, and kind of make like a ranking, right? And Lewis Hamilton was our mark, because that's where he could compete with Lewis. So he would be texting me mid-stage on a transit. Where we at? Where we at with Lewis? We beat him.
Yeah.
We beat him many
For
times.
like a long time.
And then he met Lewis later on afterwards. He's like, hey, my social media is a little bad.
Because he's got to tell
World
you.
champion, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was always like competing on every single level.
But in that same conversation though, he'd always, I think when we was at events, he'd always make sure he'd grab photos with us and tag us in his posts and
Every time.
You know what I mean?
Every time.
And that for us was like the first thing you did when you saw it, screenshot it.
Yeah.
And like show somebody, and like I'd be like, hey mum, look at this. you know, I've made it.
Yeah. No, he was
wanted to
big
build
on the credit thing.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
he wanted to build everybody.
Yes.
Like I said,
Yeah.
probably just so that one time he was going to go into drifting, and if
He
ever
showed
got-
up, he could knock you down.
But the detail, he would be, you know, we would make a post about you here at Goodwood, and he's like, well, look up, like, what has he won recently? What has Mad Mike done in the past couple months? And put that in the post that's going up to, once again, like, level everybody up. He
I
was
remember
super-
Goodwood 2015,
Yeah.
and my son Link is like 5 years old, and he just is picked up and disappears out of the circle, and it's Ken had picked him up and literally dropped him into the unicorn. And so
No
then
way.
Link's like, fucking, oh man, I've just been watching this on
Yeah.
frickin' YouTube, and there he is
Oh,
living
that's so rad.
his best life, because Ken was a massive inspiration to
Yeah.
the whole family. So yeah, just cool. And like, I think the hardest thing for me was, as the fan base, they look at me and Ken as full rivals. I know we're not in the same discipline, but it's
Yeah.
like Drift versus Gymkhana and Red Bull versus Monster and
Yeah.
Mazda versus Ford, and I'm like, he was the first, but like whenever he came to New Zealand, he's like, hands down, this is the funnest frickin' rally stages.
Oh yeah,
He would
loved
call
the
me in a
big
heartbeat,
stages.
and you know, would come out to home,
Well,
go to
you
Hampton Downs.
rode with him testing the one
That's
year.
it.
in
Every
the-
time
in
he's
the
like, dude,
Escort.
hey, we just built our new shop at Hampton Downs,
Yeah.
and then so he stayed at our place for a bit, and then yeah, we took him out in the drift cars, we did go-karting, like racing around with Link, freaking wiped both of us, but it's another story.
It's a
Anyway,
weight. That's weight. It's
yeah.
weight.
Yeah,
It's a
But he's like,
power
so
weight thing.
anyway, this is on the Sunday, and then Ken's like, dude, man, you literally have he's like, I got snow in winter, then I go snowboarding, and I got, the snow melts and I go mountain biking. You've got go-karts, motocross, there's BMX, there's freaking everything in the shop. The only thing you don't have is a rally stage. He calls me on the Wednesday when he's testing, he's like, bro, I'm like literally like 5 minutes from your shop, and he was in Matamural Forest. They had a key and they were doing the rally stage. So he's
Yeah,
like, freaking come down here. I was building the Lamborghini. We had 4 weeks to build the Lambo to get it here. And I was like, guys, got to go for lunch. Skived off, and then he's posting like, the boy's like, bro, you didn't go for lunch, you're with Ken, and we ran
it
in the
goes up
Cosworth.
within that hour, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he blew 6 gear, and he's like, of course, fuck, I had to push that extra little bit, you know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool, just, you know, that relationship from the outside perspective of the fans,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they think, and then to just how humble he was and good guy
I mean, I
always.
think
to-
that's a big part of what people didn't realize was like Ken was actually kind of pretty humble about everything, and I think like really grateful for a lot. Like the internal thing he always had was he always said like, I'm a lucky bastard.
Yes.
Like he was very aware that things worked out well for him, and he put a ton of work into it. And obviously deserved what he got, but like he was aware that things like aligned well for him, and he was, you know, had a good group of people, and you know that he worked with from racing to everything he did. But I also think that just jackhammering, just that's cool. Audio guys like kill me. No, I think the thing about Ken that a lot of people like didn't realize was that like he was actually a bit shy, and like he was bigger than life to the world, but like he really preferred a small group. So like, but at the same time, you'd go to a WRC event and he would sign autographs until the building was empty.
Yep.
Right, and it's like because he knew how important that was to fans. Like
Right.
that was something that was so like he, even if it made him feel a little uncomfortable and it wasn't like where his space was, right? Like I'm one of those people who like I'll sit down and talk to everybody for hours. Like I'm that's my thing. But for him, he had to like break through that and like push to be that person. But he knew that it was important. And he also knew like what that response was from like the fan base of like, hey, these guys, and he used to say to me, well, we used to do like posters, and you know, he hated the hero card, right? The little hero card, because he's like, someone comes here, they wait online for an hour, and you're gonna hand them an index card? No, we're gonna give them a poster, and it's gonna, actually it's not a poster, it's a print. It's gonna have a white border around it, because I want them to go home and feel like they framed it. Because if they sat here for an hour to get my autograph, I want them to like really walk away with something. And it's like that mindset that he had, and even just something as simple as like an autograph signing,
Or just that
and like how
poster
important that was.
We would have a 50 email deep
Oh.
edit on the angle and how the poster is, and when it's on the kid's wall, like how that's gonna look. But that was it. Like he wanted that poster to be perfect for every event, no matter what.
Paper was printed on.
Exactly.
Oh, trust me,
100%.
paper
The
stock?
paperweight-
Yeah,
that's-
we've driven
that's a
all
paper
around
weight.
Argentina,
That's a paper
Portugal,
weight. Yeah.
finding the right cardstock.
Chuck it
Yeah,
in the
I know
Yeah.
more about
Yeah.
Yep.
paper than I should.
I remember people in Monster panicking so bad because Ken's posters hadn't arrived, and someone was just like, "We'll just go to the shop and buy some more. Like, how hard can this be? Get us there." And everyone was like, "No, it needs to be this laminate, this paper,
Yep.
with this ink, with this size." And let's not get onto which Sharpie he wanted to use as well.
Oh, the chisel tip, the Sharpie chisel tip.
Had to
That
be the
was
Sharpie
every
chisel
time.
tip because it had to look good. And that was his
Yes.
thing. Like, he practiced his autograph because he wanted it to look good for people.
Yeah.
And that's how much he cared about that. And it's like, you think about all those levels, and it's like, yeah, it was super important.
2005, when we went to 100 Acre Wood, and Travis was signing autographs on the street, and there's a shopping store right next to it, and he was leaning back against the wall, and the crowd was with Travis, and we had Ken posters for the first time.
Yeah.
And I said, Ken, you got to go sign the posters by the car. He said, no, nobody wants my signature. Nobody wants a poster
Yeah.
from me. And you think where he went
That's
from
changed.
then to
Right.
the end, you know,
Right.
like he learned and
Unreal.
he got into it. That was amazing.
He never liked fame. Sorry.
Right, he didn't want the
He
fame.
wanted to drive, he
Cars.
wanted to win, he wanted to do the best that he could. But the interesting part was that when everybody, if you look at even just people when you're talking at the funeral or talking, everyone from the people running billion-dollar corporations to Joe Schmo's son,
Yep.
who just liked rally, they had a story about Ken and how he actually took the time to care.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, now you guys saw it differently, like kind of working for Ken, like he cared so much.
Yeah.
But he literally, he was so passionate about so much stuff. But what he was really passionate about was people. And he was passionate, and even though it didn't come across, because like you said, he was shy. This is not a guy that went out and was like the first person like me, like, hey, what's up? Or you,
Yeah,
or like,
yeah.
he's sitting in the back,
lot
but
of energy.
he sees that one kid that's in the back that he sees a little bit of himself in, that he can see. He's like, that kid's shy.
Yeah.
And he'll go over and he'll make that kid's life.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the cool part.
Yeah. No, and I think the thing, and we all heard this at the memorial and everyone talking about it, but like, for everybody who saw Ken on the outside, Ken inspired them in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But like people who were close, like he actually really gave us opportunity, right? And I think that was like a big part of that. And like, not just like by setting it up, but actually giving you that ambition to be like, you work really hard.
Yeah.
I want to see you go do this, right? Like whether it's the shoes that you got from him or like, so many different stuff. Even him giving you Gymkhana. I mean, you realize that wasn't easy.
That
was not an
a
easy
big
conversation.
That was, yeah.
So Ken, as competitive as he is, I had been bet. What the hell are they building over there? All right, one more story.
That's Ken, by the way. He's like, wrap it up, guys.
Yeah,
Wrap it
guys,
up. I'm not for ready.
All right, but I get jackhammers going, everything. But it was really interesting because Ken came to me after I had begged, because he brought me in like unprovoked to Gymkhana San Fran.
Yep.
I honestly thought that was the coolest freaking Gymkhana of all time. Like getting to do what he got to do, shutting down the streets. And your guys' story behind the scenes there's so many great stories. But I got to be a part of that, and I was like, Ken, dude, I want to do more stuff. Like, you bring Rob in to drive, and Ken's always like, like, what do you add to it? Like, he's kind of like, so I'm like, I'm fine. He's like, I mean, are you going to do this stuff better? You're not a proximity guy. Because you got nitro, you can fly, you can do whatever. So he finally comes to me right before Gymkhana 10. And you guys are filming this big old thing, and he's like, hey, if I gift you the biggest opportunity, and he built it up. He goes, I'm gonna need 20 million views in the first year. He goes, if you don't think you can deliver, I'll walk away now, because like I'm probably talking to the wrong person. And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, I've never looked at a YouTube view or anything. Like, it's just not, like, Ken is kind of more similar to like Rob Dyrdek, where
Very
they
analytical.
understand what works, and I just want to go drive. I was like, yeah, I can do that. I've never had a video got like 10 million, but I mean, sure, 20, that's no problem. Because I just need these guys, and that guy, let's make it happen. Yeah, we'll be great. And he's like, all right, I didn't hear anything. So I'm out testing a track for a Nitro Rallycross. And he's like, hey, so I called Ken. I was like, hey, can you come tomorrow? He's like, well, actually, I'm doing something I'm going to need your help with. Can you come here? I was like, I'm in the middle of testing a track. He's like, you're going to want to do this. So Ken brings me out, doesn't tell me really what's going on. You guys know because you were there.
Yeah.
And he's like, so this car, it costs $10,000 to start up or something. So I get there, and it's
In a truck.
Yeah, the Huna truck. Sorry, car. I get in
Yeah,
trouble.
yeah, it's the same thing.
It's low.
It's low. It's like a car.
Yeah, yeah.
It's basically a car.
Yeah, it's a Ute. It's fine.
It's a Ute. Yeah.
So he gets me
Mike
out there, and right
described.
as they come, he's like, "Oh, we can't start this up. I need someone to push." I really thought he brought me out. He's like, "Bring your helmet and stuff," but we're pushing this truck for the final shot where it like rolls in. He's like, "All right, now get in." He goes, "That's how we're gonna end the video." He goes, "You in?" I'm like, hell yeah. And that was it. That was it. Like Ken, like he just had this whole thing where everyone believes in what he does because of the person that he is. You know, if Ken asks something of you, like he's not just looking out for himself.
Right.
Like if that makes any sense at all, like everyone would bend over backwards for Ken because without anyone ever asking him to, he always bent over backwards to bring everyone to the level that he could.
Absolutely.
So that's how I got Gymkhana 11.
Yeah.
And then I got yelled at by everybody because I didn't think about it. I jumped into a monster branded Ford.
Oops.
And I didn't have time to call my agent, so maybe that's what it was all
Yeah,
about.
There you go. It ended up working out.
Yeah, it worked out in the end. Everyone got a little in the end.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Oh, we could go on for a
I know we could go on for
long
hours.
We'd be
Unfortunately,
here
we
all
ran
night.
out of
Legend.
unfortunately we ran out of beer, so it looks like
Yeah.
the conversation's over.
But if you look back at my car when I first went to California and you look at those DC boots, look at the biggest sticker that was on my car. I was so proud to run a massive DC logo
Oh, yeah, I
on the
remember
back of
that.
that car. The whole rear quarter was DC,
Hell yeah.
and I got a free pair of boots. But I got a high five and a frickin' the best friendship.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
worth it.
actually, I got a wife out of it. Actually, no, this sounds no. So Lindsay, but she's a 3-time X Games gold medalist. Skateboarders, they're much cooler than I will ever be, or pretend to be, or never really try to be cool in any way, shape, form. I think that's why
That's
Ken.
kind of what works for you.
It does.
Yeah.
You're like not trying to be cool is what makes you cool, Travis.
Lindsay, my wife, was the first female skateboarder that was picked up by DC Shoes, and she had always wanted to be DC. And I walked by with a DC shirt on. She's like, "Ah, that guy must be cool." First time she noticed me. Shit, you not. And she stuck with me for the rest of her life. I love her.
Sorry.
You know.
But I have never seen the internet saturated with as much, tributes and posts
Yeah.
and videos.
Yes, yeah.
And it was from people that it's not even in this motorsport community that we live in, that we're aspiring to, and it was just everyone. It was every freaking news piece. It was
Yes.
like just flooded.
Yeah.
Like that's
It
the
really
legacy.
shows.
There was a lot of it right afterwards where Ron and I were like, man, if Ken could just see some of this, right? Like
Yeah.
things like Porsche Motorsport, which
Right.
we never had a relationship with, doing like full-on things about Ken, and you're just realizing like how much bigger the impact was than we saw it internally.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in it,
Yeah, you
you're just trying to make the
Yeah.
next video bigger. You're trying to win the next race. You're trying to outdo Lewis Hamilton, right? Like, but like
That's something no one really
yeah,
ever
but
tried
you're
to
not
do.
thinking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
like the ripple and butterfly effect of like what you created, in 2008, how that went on to go do all these different things, and and we've seen it so much in the past few months. Even just being here today, walking around, having people
It's
like,
unreal.
oh, I was here in 19 and I met Ken. He had the truck. I was here in 14, 15 when the Unicorn was here, and in these moments and like how they touch everyone. And I sometimes like you got to think like. I feel so privileged that we got to spend so much time with him.
Right.
We got to see all these different pieces of Ken and like how much that created who all of us were. Whether it just inspired you a little bit or it was a constant litany of him telling you to change this to be better, depending on how it came to
Yep.
you. But like that was a big part of what Ken was. So yeah, and it's crazy because I think like he defied so many kind of like stereotypes of what he should have been. And like, and I even like when I met him, the first time I met him, he was just like, oh, it's the president of DC Shoes. I met him on Gumball Rally. And like, I was kind of expecting like this businessman. And like, he wasn't a businessman at all. He was so not that. I mean, so much so that actually the first time we came to Goodwood, we went to the ball. No, not that story. I'll save that. No, not telling that. No. I got, there's too many people to name in that story. But, like world champions of both rally and WRC. But anyway, no. The first time we came to Goodwood, we went to the ball, and like Ken was like, I've never worn a tux. I had to like tie his bow tie for him, and that's like
Did he wear one? Did he actually
He
wear it?
did. I made him wear one the first year, and then he did it
No,
the next year.
Well, no,
The
'cause
first
then-
year he did because we felt like outsiders here. Like it was before they let all you drift kids here.
No,
This
I
was
felt
early
like outside.
era.
I
This
felt
was
like
early era.
With Ken, we both walked in, I think it was 2014.
Yeah.
And walked in and we both had camo suits on.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
DCs. I was like, oh, okay. So, and then I think that was like when Goodwood started getting a little looser, not quite as proper, you know, and it was drifting. I remember watching Ken and he went on the grass because I'm like, I was more scared to touch the pristine grass than to go into Irwindale's bank in my car. And it's like, oh, Ken's been on the grass. He had Lord March in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, oh yeah, we can let loose here.
Yeah.
Trust me, the first year we went into the grass, I don't really know. Like, I couldn't tell if Lord March was actually happy or not.
We were on the sidelines like.
Yeah, and everyone was like trying to stop him, like all the marshals, and Ken just like full in center axis donuts.
But then he won that year in 2010 the most exciting driver award.
Yeah.
Lord March gave that to him. So that next year we made
Start that award?
I'm pretty
like
sure, yeah, the
probably.
most exciting driver. And then that next year we made a sticker that said, and the Lord said, "Thou shalt hoon."
Thou shalt,
And
yeah,
we
and
put
the,
it
yeah.
on the roll cage at the top of the
Yeah.
car, so it was like cool to get in the grass and everything.
Yeah, and he loved this event because I think he loved the marketing around
Oh,
all
yeah.
of it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
we with DC, we did the Huck skull with the bow tie.
Yep.
Because like it was, you
And the
know,
top hat,
Goodwood felt
yeah.
so much more formal to us than
Yeah,
any
yeah,
other
yeah,
like
yeah.
thing that we would go to and all that. Actually, the night he wore the tux, I remember. We got there and like I think we were both feeling like kind of like out of place and like we didn't have like our like ladies with us, so it was just the two of us going in stag with like our like tuxedos on, and both
Trying to
of us.
figure out how to
Yeah,
tie the
like
tie.
everyone's trying to figure out how this
Are you
works.
good? I think I'm
yeah,
good.
and
YouTube
like
tutorials.
and then
on,
like I think
drifting.
once he started to work, he put an Obama Can't Gymkhana sticker on his suit.
Yes,
Because he
yeah,
just
yeah.
needed to like not
Have
be the guy
something.
wearing
Yeah,
the
yeah,
tux.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
he just needed to break that mold, which was like such a thing. Yeah. The first funny suit thing, and I'll wrap this up because we could go on forever. But you know, I worked as a magazine journalist beforehand. I had taken a lot of meetings with like the automakers, so we go to sign our contract for like the deal with Ford. Sorry, that was the day we left you.
You didn't have to run.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Just had to
Yeah.
That's fine.
We go to sign it, and I came down to breakfast first. We were like, oh, we're gonna get breakfast, and then they're gonna meet us here. And I came down like wearing like, you know, like a blazer and a button down and a tie. I was like, what are you doing? He's like wearing a t-shirt and jeans.
Probably team shirt.
I was like, I don't know. I figured like we were meeting with like CEOs and stuff. Like I should dress nice. He's like, they don't pay you. They don't pay us so you could look like them. He's like, go upstairs and change into whatever you would normally wear. And I like always stuck with me. Like he was like, he didn't need to pretend to be something else. He's like, this is who I am, and like this is what you're investing in. Is like what I am. I'm not trying to be what you are. And that was like such a life lesson for me. And like since that point, I was like, yep, guess this is how I dress. My wife hasn't changed.
2005, WRC Mexico. We walk up. Our team kit was T-shirts, like in your face
remember that.
logos. Petter Solberg, Chris Atkinson walk in, suit and tie to the function. We walk in T-shirts, the whole crew, the whole everything. I mean, all like, you know, and all the heads of Subaru were like, these Americans, they get it. And I just remember looking over, and Atco looked at me like, I hate you. I've spent my whole life not wanting to be this guy. I have to do this. And you guys walk in T-shirts and they praise you for it. He's like, I wanted to wear T-shirts.
Yeah.
So last story. Best Ken Block story. What do you got?
Best
Keep
ever.
backing up.
You're
Step
finishing
forward.
it up. You finish it up.
Go. Close this out, man.
I honestly, I don't know. Are we allowed to talk about Ken drinking? I don't know. Like I got some stories of.
Wait, hold on. Were you in South Africa? Because then no.
I would like to tell my story, but I feel
We
like
don't talk
my
about
best
South
story
Africa.
is something I can't talk about. but-
Okay.
No, Ken though he didn't drink very often.
No, but
When-
when he did, he had a lot of
when
fun.
he did,
We drank in
it was
celebration.
to the limiter. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was-
100%. Full wide open throttle the
It
whole
didn't happen
time.
very often with me anyway, but it was wide open when it did, and that's what I loved about him. You know, like when you get to have those special moments, they were ones you remembered forever. So
yeah.
I'll take them with me for sure.
I remember he lit my candles at my birthday at Tokyo Auto Salon. I thought that was pretty freaking cool.
That's amazing.
From, like I say, like from some kid that was like, I got a free pair of kicks off him and big inspiration, to then only 2 years ago lighting my birthday candles in Japan before Tokyo Auto Salon doing a Toyo Tires gig.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty emotional freaking moment.
As
As a bro, I was still
Yeah.
fuck, I had a bit of a tear coming out my eye at the same time.
You're like, allergies.
Yeah. Who cut the onions?
Yeah.
We were both at Essen Motor Show years ago, and he was like, we were just there together at the same signing session with ST. I didn't even know he was going to be there, and then straight away later he was like, what are you doing tonight? You want to go for dinner? Like, I found this really cool sushi place. I was like, yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? And it was things like that you
Just
were
that,
like,
that smallest thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That would mean so much to you.
yeah, just in the middle of Germany and
Yep.
doing, just going out for dinner and just hanging out. So
Yeah.
And the thing too, like when you talk about the dinner thing, Ken used to love the mixed company at dinner.
Yes.
Like I've met so many of my childhood just
Idols.
idols,
Yeah.
not expecting to meet them. Like being at Ken's house, he's like, oh yeah, come by, blah blah blah. And the door rings, and I open the door, and it's Tony Hawk, and I'm like, hey, he's like, hi, I'm Tony, and I'm like, yeah, I know. And it's like he loved kind of mixing all these groups of people, because even when I first met him, he'd be in New York City and hey, come out to dinner tonight, and you'd show up to dinner and there'd be musicians there, and there'd be pro skateboarders and head of guys in fashion. He loved having that round table of
Right.
people who normally wouldn't all get together, because in his mind, and I learned this later, it's that's how great collabs work, right? It's
Well, that was
everyone's kinda
exactly it.
works
It wasn't
together.
an ego thing. It wasn't I got these people together
No,
here.
yeah.
It was how cool would it be if he met him and they worked together and made a collab?
Yeah.
I want to see that. And that's, it was never self-centric.
Yeah.
It was always what cool creative can come of this.
Yeah, I mean, not to keep going back to the memorial, but I think that was such a thing that day. Was you sat there, there's 550 people there, and you look around the room and you first look and think these are some of the most important people in action sports and
Not just
motorsports.
action sports.
Yeah.
Just in business.
It
right?
blew my mind.
Heads of business. And so many of us connected afterwards, and so many of us have continued to talk. And there's a bunch of people who I'd lost contact with over the years, and we sort of stayed in touch because I think we all realized that's really what Ken would have wanted, was
Absolutely.
us to continue to do stuff. And it's whether it's Damon Way, who was his co-founder at DC. I talk to Damon every week now. I hadn't spoke to him in 10 years, and it was a lot of hey, he brought us together, we did this together, keeping that going. And so much of that has come out of I think after everything that's happened, is this realization of the not just the opportunity, but the group of people that kind of got connected for Ken that should never have been connected, right? This weird group of people we call friends, because he's managed to curate this odd group.
Right, 'cause
why I'm friends with
everybody-
Brandon from Rancid.
Right.
Why I'm friends with the drummer of Rancid, which is a band I grew up loving, because he became friends with Ken, and now he's part of my friend group, and because we have these interests, and Ken was very good at putting that
You just
together.
sent me a pickleball paddle.
Yeah, I got
did,
one too.
yeah.
They're great.
It's
They're really
good,
cool. Yeah, the
actually.
ghost ones. I like those.
Brandon's a cool guy.
So,
But yeah,
do you play
everybody-
pickleball? I feel the way your knees are fused together, you are probably aren't that good at that. You, on the other hand, tennis boy, I'm sure you rip at pickleball. I've seen you walk.
For as bad as I move, I'm surprisingly not horrible.
Good.
I wouldn't say good. And on that note,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Yeah.
boys. To Ken.
Cheers to Ken.
Ken and Goodwood.
There he is. Look at that.
you.
Frick, what a piece of artwork. Look at it.
This is quite nice.
and on that note, my knee's about to fall off.
Ken Block, what a way to finish the day. You had a passenger in there, did you not?
Yeah, I've been waiting kind of all day to kind of have a clean run at the hill and actually be able to do some donuts up here. Every time I've come up, there's been a big group of people. It's no fun for me. So yeah, it was kind of nice to open it up a little bit.
And as it says on the rear bumper there, hooning is not a crime. It isn't, is it?
Not here. Lord March encourages it, and I appreciate that.